I think we all have a little bit of free will, but I do think there are some things that happen in our life that are destined, that are
Mm.
fated. I haven't been able to find a psychic ability that I haven't been able to tap into, which is really cool in terms of all of the clairs. I think my antenna just, I was born with one that was a little bit brighter, but everybody can develop it and make their own antenna brighter. It's like a muscle that we can work. So I don't think it's unique to only certain people that can do this. We can all do this.
Welcome to Blisstopia podcast. I'm your host, Mercedes Castellani, life purpose coach, business owner, and your spiritual guide on all things mindset, manifestation, and purpose. This podcast is a space for deep reflections, meaningful conversations to help you expand your mind, dive into the depths of your soul, and create a life that makes you feel alive. Whether you're walking, driving, or simply vibing, take a deep breath and get ready to dive. Hello, my love. Welcome to another episode of Blisstopia podcast. I'm your host, Mercedes Castellani, and I'm very excited to be recording this episode. Today, we're going to talk about developing your intuition to receive guidance from the unseen realms. So this is going to be one of those woo-woo episodes for my spiritual girlies who are here, who love these kind of topics. And today, we're going to talk to Dallisa Hocking. She's a psychic visionary and a bold predictor of world events. Dallisa is a fifth-generation psychic medium renowned for her bold, accurate predictions about global events, U.S. affairs, and personal destinies. She has dedicated her life to helping women strengthen their intuition, understand their self-worth, and connect to the unseen realms. Through a blend of psychic insight, energy work, and intuitive coaching, Dallisa guides others towards clarity, empowerment, and profound personal transformation. Thank you, Dallisa, for being here. I'm super curious and excited about this conversation.
My gosh, I think we're going to go down some rabbit holes in this conversation. And I love when we aren't quite sure exactly where it's going to go, but I trust that whatever comes forward is going to be interesting and what we need to hear today. So thank you for having me.
Exactly. I'm super happy to have you. And I'm curious about your own story. How did you discover your psychic abilities, your predictions? How did all of this started awakening for you?
Yeah, I think of myself almost like an accidental psychic medium because this was not in my life plans. Like I wasn't like a little kid excited about my future as a psychic medium. Like maybe somebody could make a Hollywood movie about that, but that is not how my life was. I actually was a matchmaker and a dating coach. I owned a matchmaking company before I started working as a psychic medium. And often people will say, well, why don't you go back into matchmaking and use your psychic gifts and bring people together? But yeah, I started off, I think, a long, long time ago with my interest in this topic because I am fifth generation. My dad's side of the family actually has all these abilities. My grandmother and I would sit in her living room and talk about all of the things that she would see. She would actually see full body apparitions with her physical eyes, and she could see them walk through her living room. And she would tell us, who was there, what they were wearing, everything. And she would get premonitions and she would call me Lisi. That was my nickname. And she'd say, Lisi, I'm getting ESP, extrasensory perception. I'm getting ESP. Do you want to hear what's coming in? I'd be like half scared and like half excited. And she would tell me stories about her grandmother and how her grandmother had these same abilities. And so I've always been very open to it, but it wasn't until 2015 when everything changed overnight and rocked my world, and nothing's been the same since. So I'll give you and your audience a shorter version of the story because it gets quite long. But what happened was last minute, I decided to go to New York to go to a retreat at a place called the Omega Institute in New York. And it was a workshop on synchronicity, and a group of people had come together and they wanted to talk about how everything happens for a reason. In hindsight, I think about this, I'm like, how ironic could my life be that here I am at a workshop on synchronicity. And the very last night of my trip, I left the Omega Institute, and a friend of mine who I had worked with on a project in Las Vegas, had a house that was really close by the Omega Institute. He said, "Come over, let's catch up." So I did. I went over to his house and we were just talking about life. And I didn't really know him personally. I knew him more through work. But while we were sitting at his house that night, his phone rings unexpectedly. And a family member had called to let him know that his aunt, who he loved very much, his Aunt Barbara, had fallen down a flight of stairs that day and died unexpectedly. And I have chills coming up my body, as I tell the story. And, like I said, I don't know his family and it's late at night at that point. So I give him my condolences. I go to the guest bedroom. I go to sleep and I don't think anything else of it until during my sleep that night in the astral dream state, his Aunt Barbara, who I didn't know, never seen before, came through. I knew telepathically it was her. I could see her hair, her facial features. She said, without moving her mouth through telepathy, she said, "Please let my nephew know I made it to the other side. I'm okay." So I wake up the next morning, and you know how you're just kind of like coming out of being asleep? It hits me like a ton of bricks that Aunt Barbara had come to me and what the message was. And so I get out of bed and I go to the kitchen. My friend was already standing there. I said, "Hey, listen, I met your Aunt Barbara last night. Here's what she had to say." And my friend, just straight faced, looks at me and said, "Well, what did she look like?" And I described her hair, her facial features. And he said, "That's her." I said, "All right. She made it to the other side. She's okay. I'm going to go ahead and fly back home now." And my brain wouldn't shut off about it. It just kept going back to that experience. And I felt in that moment as I was talking to him in his kitchen and that night, I remember her so clearly coming through. I knew that everything had changed.
Mm.
And in the last, 10 plus years, it's unfolded in a variety of ways and how I've worked with my gifts. But I knew that I couldn't go back really into running a different company or kind of even living in the same city that I was living in because they were more closed minded. So it uprooted everything about my life. And that's how it all came to be and how it all started.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing this. And when you were sharing your own, this guidance that you got from Aunt Barbara, I was like also having full goosebumps. And I'm like, wow, this is really, 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 really powerful. So from that place, you started, your life shifted upside down. You started making different decisions, different business, different city, and you started following that guidance. Do you think your guides wanted you to make those changes in hindsight?
Yeah, I don't even think I really had a choice in it. I think we all have a little bit of free will, but I do think there are some things that happen in our life that are destined, that are
Mm,
fated. And one of the reasons I think it is fated for me was anyone that ever looks at my astrology chart, and I've even, sat with my own chart a bit, everything about my chart speaks to being a psychic and how my life is all connected, to my career, being a psychic and being able to see beyond the veil. And so I think I came into this lifetime knowing that these gifts would be activated, but I'm actually really happy they didn't come in until 10 years ago
mm,
because I had the opportunity to start a few companies, and I had worked at a business school in Texas. I love business. I love being an entrepreneur. And because I had the structure and had the logical, analytical piece of being able to have a company and run a company,
mm,
then by the time my gifts dropped in, I was able to actually take that information and like almost set up a system or a package in a way where I could bring it to people, bring
mm,
it to an audience that felt very grounded because I know, and I've met a lot of people over the years in this industry, it can get very woo woo. It can get
mm,
very like ethereal and up in the clouds. And I think my approach is one where I like to talk about it like, here we are, we're humans, we're here on earth, we're having this experience. What are we going to do about it? So I think my approach is much more of a blend of both the psychic abilities, but also being able to articulate it hopefully, in a way that makes sense to people regarding their everyday to day life. So I am grateful that it happened when it happened and really not any earlier than that.
Absolutely. Yeah, because then you have the structure, the logic, you know how to set up a business. Because so many times we see people who are in the spiritual space and it just feels very ungrounded. It feels very flaky. It feels like anything can change any minute. And I think it's beautiful to have that. Yes, we're connected to the 5D, but also we still keep one foot in the 3D. We need to be, we're still humans, we still have a body, so we still need to be somewhere in the middle. And I see that a lot. People go very, very high very quickly, and sometimes it's hard to find the right middle between both places. Fantastic. So how does it work for you? I'm really curious. Do you see things? Do you feel? I know we can hear, we can see, we can feel, but how does it work for you? What's your experience like?
I am so fortunate to be able to have really all of the main psychic abilities. I haven't been able to find a psychic ability that I haven't been able to tap into, which is really cool in terms of all of the clairs. But again, I think it goes back to my lineage because I come from generations. So I think it's passed down through my DNA. I think everybody, when we're activating our intuition or psychic abilities, our antenna kind of lights up, right? I think my antenna just, I was born with one that was a little bit brighter, but everybody can develop it and make their own antenna brighter. It's like a muscle that we can work. So I don't think it's unique to only certain people that can do this. We can all do this. But when I first started, a lot of the gifts came through clairvoyantly. And I'll say that's probably still a primary. So I will see what looks like a daydream playing out in front of me. I don't see it with my physical eyes in the way my grandmother did in terms of spirits that have crossed over. They too look almost like a daydream, like you can kind of see through it like a little bit of translucent. But I will see when I'm doing psychic word work more like symbols, photos, mini movies that are playing out. If I am doing mediumship or connecting with a celebrity that's passed away or somebody that, is somebody's loved one, they will step forward and usually come in directly in front of me and they appear to hover a few feet off the ground to give you kind of context of what it looks like. But
Mm,
again, translucent. And I will see the photos and the mini movies that are connected to their life. Like they start telling me a story using my own senses so that
mm,
I can receive it and then articulate it outwards. It's like playing a game of Pictionary for anybody that knows that game. It's like they're showing me something, I'm interpreting it, they show me something else. It's like this two-way back and forth conversation. So clairvoyance, I would say, is a primary, but I'll also say that another one is clairaudience, and that's clear hearing,
mhm,
and it'll like pass by what feels like my right ear. And I just hear a word or a phrase that just kind of sweeps by. So I often, when I'm channeling, will say something like, I'm hearing da da da, or I'm seeing, and I'm just explaining it. I will feel things in my physical body, usually chills or my confirmation of like we're saying something important or this is like an exclamation point in a conversation. If I'm doing mediumship, it is not uncommon for me to actually feel something in the physical body that
mm,
is associated with a message of what that person from the other side, that spirit, is trying to communicate. So sometimes it has to do with how they passed away, or I will notice sometimes that, let's say, my chest gets really, really heavy in the heart area. It could be that there was a lot of emotional turmoil that they were going through, or they were trying to process a lot of emotions on the other side. So it's not always the physical thing that comes through based on how they pass, but it could be also emotional or related to their chakras or their energy systems. And then I feel that in my body. I do get downloads. That's the clear cognizance where it's just like it just pops in. You just know what you know and it just comes in. So I usually refer to those as downloads. The other one that people will sometimes experience, and I've only had a couple of experiences with it, is clear alienance. And that is clear smelling.
mm,
And a quick example of how that showed up for me is early on when I first started doing readings, I was doing on my way to a group reading, and I had to drive across town, and I was on the freeway by myself in my car, and I was talking to spirit. And I said, okay, before I get there, give me a message. Tell me something that I can go into this group with. And I started seeing clairvoyantly as I'm driving down the freeway, popcorn. Popcorn. Okay. All right. I'm like, okay, give me something else. And I heard popcorn. No, this is not going to go well. How am I going to walk into this house and tell them, hey, I got popcorn on the way here? And then I started smelling popcorn in my car, which is significant for me because in my human senses, I don't have a good sense of smell. So not only was there no popcorn in my car, but I was smelling it. So I get to the group reading and I just sit down and I'm starting to introduce myself. And I said, listen, I asked for a message on the way here. I'm just going to say it. And I said, I saw it. I heard it. I smelt it. It was popcorn. And as soon as I said that in that moment, I felt this in spirit, a cat brush up against my leg. And I said, okay, and there's a cat here. And these two women start crying. And I thought, oh, I didn't know who they were. It turns out they were sisters. And one of them was making popcorn at her house one night with her husband. They had a popcorn machine. They went to bed. The popcorn machine lit on fire, burned their house down, and killed their cat. So I share that example because, one, to illustrate how clairalience can work as a psychic message, but two, to remind everyone, spirit does not waste a message. So if you are working with spirit or you're even just talking to your angels, your guides, your loved ones on the other side, if you get something that you are seeing, hearing, feeling, sensing, smelling, it is not something to discard. Because it takes a lot of energy for the other side to bring us a message. And so if they are bringing you something, which we can all receive, then treat that as a sacred piece of information. And maybe you don't understand what it means right away, but have that faith and that trust that you will at some point understand what it is that they're trying to communicate with you.
Wow. And it's also trusting because maybe it doesn't make sense to our logical human minds, but it's also trusting that there's a reason why they chose popcorn. And it seems so random to the logical mind, but there was an actual story behind it. So that's why it was brought. So do you think any person can develop their intuitive abilities? Or is this just something that some people in some lineages have the talent or the skill?
I think we can all do it. I think our road to developing it can look a little bit different. So I know I was born with the abilities. Other people are born with them. You hear stories of people that will say like, "Oh yeah, I've been psychic since I was a kid," or "I used to see ghosts in my bedroom when I was a kid." I didn't really have a lot of those experiences when I was younger, but some people just come right into the world as a small child and have those gifts and abilities. What I found, ironically, is as they get older, they usually shut them off because they don't want to hear messages anymore. They don't want to see spirits anymore. And they haven't really learned how to kind of control the gift, control the ability. And what I mean by that is like setting up a boundary, because this is a two-way communication between us and them. And you can say, I only receive messages during the day. Don't bother me while I'm sleeping. Thank you. Or only come to me between the hours of 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. unless it's really important and something that I absolutely need to know. So you get to set the boundary. So a lot of people that have it young will often kind of back away from it. But I encourage everyone to embrace their gifts, just learn the two-way communication. But if you weren't born with these gifts or it wasn't in your family and you're really interested and you want to do it, you absolutely can. It's kind of like thinking about, we've seen YouTube stories over the years where there'll be like a 3-year-old playing a piece of piano music at a recital and everyone is blown away because they're like this musical genius. And then there's somebody else that you see another video of who is, maybe in their 20s or their 30s, and they're playing the same piece of music brilliantly. But it took them a lot longer to get there because they had to learn it. They had to develop that muscle. That's what I mean by the road to get there might just look a little bit differently for each person. So, the key and what I teach my psychic development students is you have to raise your frequency because it's a frequency match. So, think of it as like a scale of energy. So, on any given day, humans may be kind of about here. And if we're really emotional, meaning like maybe we're in a state of grief or shame or anger, our frequency can drop down lower.
Mhm.
But if we're in a state of joy, happiness, we're feeling fulfilled, our energy will go higher. But we kind of bounce a little bit in that scale. Well, in order to receive psychic information, your own personal vibration and frequency needs to go higher. Okay. So it's kind of like I call it like mid range. If you want to learn and receive messages from the other side, you actually have to raise your frequency higher because you have to get it closer to the other side's frequency in order to pull forward that information. So,
Mhm.
what are things you can do to raise your frequency? That are things that you could even put through your own mind and your own life and filter of like, what can I do to make myself feel happier and healthier? So, getting enough water to drink, getting enough rest, guided meditations, even like meditations that are more binaural beats.
Mhm.
The company I love that was actually at the retreat that I had my life change and all that in 2015, they were there and we were listening to all their meditations during that retreat. And I'm not an affiliate for them, but their company is called sacredacoustics.com. And that is literally the file I still use. They have a free one on their website. And that's the one that I will put on with my headphones and channel. And I just find that their meditations bring forward so much information when I set that intention. So guided meditations or binaural beats. Taking a walk in nature, go and sit with the trees for a little bit, eating, whole fruits and vegetables, more like organic foods. Those are all things that are just naturally good for us, but they also raise up that frequency and reducing stress. If you feel like your life is a bit chaotic and overwhelming, it may be hard for you to receive information or receive signs from the other side. So, the more that we create, relaxation and spaciousness, the more information will drop in. One of the things that your audience may really want to try and resonate with is just something very, very simple. And it's setting that intention to connect. Because the more you ask to connect and you open yourself up to receive with your heart open to the highest frequencies, then that invitation will bring that through. But it's also releasing expectation of how and when and what needs to show up. But you can take a piece of paper and a pen and just write at the top of the piece of paper. Now you get to decide if it's you want to talk to your spirit guides, your angels, a specific loved one on the other side. But you can write, for example, Dear Guardian Angel, what do I need to know today? And then I would put on your headphones and listen to some calming music or meditation or the binaural beats. And then as you're listening to it, you can start to write down anything you see, hear, or feel. Okay. Because you've set that intention. You've asked the question, what do I need to know today? Now you're open to receiving. And you can even say in your heart or in your own voice, silently or loud, please only bring forward information that's in my highest and best interest, and just jot down everything that comes in. And then I would finish the meditation and I would keep that piece of paper. So if you want to buy like a little inexpensive journal or notebook and do that every single day, because each day that you do it, you're building that muscle more. You're stepping closer and closer to that frequency where that guardian angel is, for example. And you then have a notebook you can refer back to because you will start receiving more signs and synchronicities. And then you can look back like, oh my gosh, on Tuesday, I had this message come through where I saw this piece of jewelry. And then I walked into this antique store and then I saw it. So then you can start to confirm what it is that's coming through. Because one more thing I'll add to this, Spirit's going to use your own life experiences to communicate with you. So what you see, feel, hear, during your meditation and taking your notes down is going to be very different than anyone else because they're going to use your experience and your filter to communicate what it is that they're trying to communicate. So I would write down everything and not have any judgment about it. And dump it all on the piece of paper. But what you may find over time is that they may show you some of the same symbols like on a different day. Like
Mm,
you saw that piece of jewelry on a Tuesday. Maybe they show you a few weeks later another piece of jewelry and you're like, this is strange, but you write it down. Why am I getting jewelry again? Because you're building your psychic dictionary.
mm,
Because each time they show you something or tell you something, it's going to connect to something that you know about in your own life or you've been through. And as you develop your psychic dictionary, you will notice they will repeat some of the same symbols because they know that you have figured out what that symbol means and how it's unique to you.
mm. So beautiful. And I love that we can actually tap and develop this. And that was actually my experience. I wasn't so connected or, to any of the unseen realms. But the more now I've been meditating for 10 years. So that has shifted my brain, my physical brain. But I think that has actually opened up many things. And one of the things that it opened up was this huge intuition and then also the channel. And I started, communicating with people on the other side, whether that's, for example, my dad who passed away or the baby boy that I'm expecting before he actually came and decided to be in my body. And actually it's been because of meditation, I believe, that the channel started kind of like opening up. And then the more you start actually trusting those things and leaning those things and trusting that it's not random, it's actually information that you're getting, and you start making decisions based on those informations, or you start supporting people based on those informations that you get. I think we just get to expand this capacity. And in my case, it's been through meditation, I believe, and raising my frequency in general. So it's beautiful that people can really develop those psychic abilities and use them for their highest good and the highest good of all, basically.
Absolutely. Yeah. The guided meditations, I think, were the absolute game changer because even thinking back to when all of this first started happening in 2015, my initial instinct was to go into meditation to develop this more. And I really credit those meditations that I would listen to as the gateway to raise the frequency. And so I think it's about, set the intention you want to connect, get the heck out of the way and let it come through and not judging it. But I think if somebody's like, well, what's the one thing I could do? I'd say meditate. And you don't have to start with, long meditations. You can start with 3 to 5 minutes and then just add on a minute and add on another minute and just keep going longer and longer. I think guided meditations are the easiest, at least for me, because it's somebody's voice. They're walking you through some kind of journey. I teach a lot of guided meditations just because I know how powerful they are. And you can receive so many energetic blessings and activations during meditation. So start small and then gradually work up. I think a lot of the scientific research points to 20 minutes of meditation has the most benefit for the body.
Mm,
But if you're doing this more for psychic and spiritual development, work your way up to it. And I think you'll really find some beautiful resources that align with you. And I would just keep going back to the same meditations that you love. There's a YouTube channel. His name is Steve Noble. He has a huge following on YouTube, but he has incredible meditations and all different kinds. And they're absolutely free. You can go on there and just look through them and see which ones you feel drawn to. But we have so many resources available these days where we can access them and they don't cost us anything and we can just enjoy them. And so, blessings to everybody who creates free meditations for all of us to enjoy because it really does make a huge difference.
absolutely. So when we're there and we're receiving these messages, how do we distinguish if it's an actual message, if it's actual intuition, actual guidance, or if it's a story that we are creating? So for a little bit of context and story, this weekend, my fiance and I, we went to a chateau in France to celebrate Saint Valentine's. And basically, during the middle of the night, we were in this beautiful chateau, like really luxurious, truly, truly beautiful. I wake up in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. And I decided to get back into sleep. And I started having like these images of a man who's on a boat and he's drowning and he has a message for his wife and his two children. Gave me his name, gave me his wife's name. He told me that he had 2/3 children because he had lost one, basically his whole story. And he wanted me to deliver this message to his wife that basically it was an accident and that he was actually very sad at that point. So people probably thought it was a suicide, but it was actually an accident. He had an accident on the boat. So then I stopped that and I'm like, okay. And then I get this image of a little girl with a little bunny who had also drowned in a pool somewhere. And I'm like in the middle of the night in a castle. I was not afraid at all. I could feel that they were like, nice little souls, nice souls. I wasn't scared at all. But how do we distinguish? Was that it wasn't a dream because I was awake. So was that intuition? Was that a story that my mind created? How do we distinguish if it's real or if we are creating something?
I think the specificity of it would indicate that it was real. Normally, it takes the practice of knowing the subtleties and the energy to understand if it's your like brain or your thoughts creating it or if it's spirit. So, usually, like in that example, it could feel like it just kind of dropped in, because you could ask yourself, was I thinking about somebody on a boat previous to this? Like, was I
No,
thinking about a little girl with a bunny? And you're going to be like, no, I wasn't thinking about any of that
I was
stuff. So,
sleeping.
I think just kind of ask yourself first, like, does this sound like something that I would create? And I don't think when it's that specific that it's something that you would just make up in your own thoughts, subconsciously or otherwise. So I would watch for detail of something that drops in that feels like, where did that come from? It feels like it came out of nowhere, right? So maybe you hear a word and you're like, wait a second, did I just hear that? So it could feel like it's not you, but it will likely sound like you. It'll likely sound like the internal thoughts that you will have on any given day about something different. So because they use our own senses, our own body, our own experiences in our life, it's going to feel like ourselves. It's going to feel like us. So notice if it just feels like it came out of nowhere. And I'll say the same thing even about like angel numbers, because I get a lot of questions about that when people see like repeating numbers. And they'll say, like, how do I know it's actually my angels that are communicating with me? Whether it's seeing 1111, 33, 44, 88. I want you to notice when you see the numbers when you were not expecting to see the numbers. So if you're driving down the road and you see it on the license plate in front of you and you're like, wow, like it shows up right in front of you, but you weren't necessarily like, come on, angels, show me the numbers. I would say don't go overly searching for clues and information because it just kind of floats in when it is information from spirit. But with more and more practice, you will notice the subtlety between it being yours and being from spirit, but it is pretty subtle. So then the next natural question somebody may ask that's watching this is, well, how do I practice that? Like, how do I get the subtle messages and know the difference? It's practice. And so my suggestion is to practice on people you don't know. And what I mean by that is asking someone, can I tune into your energy? Can I put your name on the top of a piece of paper and write down all the impressions I get and then give them to you? And getting permission first, they say yes, and then share that information with them and get their feedback. It's the only way you're really going to know if the information that you're getting is accurate and how spirit is communicating with you. So practice on people you don't know. And that could be, through social media. It could be that you contact 5 of your friends and say, hey, I want to practice on 5 strangers. Do you know somebody that's open to this? And have them connect you with somebody that they know that is interested in receiving messages. But practice is the quickest way to get there.
I love this. And if we think about the woman who's listening to this show and she probably wants to make a change in her career, changing her life, And I feel like when we are in those crossroads, sometimes we are like, okay, I need some guidance here. I need some support here, especially if we think about someone who's thinking about changing career or thinking about a big move in life. So, how do we ask for guidance in those specific cases? Like, should I, for example, stay in this job or launch my own business? Should I stay in this city or move to a new city? How do we ask for guidance in those from the unseen realm in those contexts where we are like, I actually need guidance now?
Yeah, I would pay attention to what you're writing down if you're doing the daily, what do I need to know today? And just notice if there is anything coming up that's pointing you towards a direction. You can ask, I refer to it as my spirit team, which is all of my angels, guides, and loved ones. And you can just say to them, Spirit team, show me signs. Which direction am I supposed to go in? Or which direction is in my highest and best interest? And then you'll notice that they will start dropping clues or breadcrumbs. Now, whether you listen to those clues or breadcrumbs is really up to you, but your body will also give you answers. So, what I mean by that is, you could sit with the question and let's say it's, should I move to Los Angeles or New York? We'll just use that as an example. So, I would do a little meditation first and then just sit with, you could have your hand on your heart and have your eyes closed and ask the question. You could say something like, Spirit team, I would love for you to help me to understand which choice is better. So help me to feel it in my body and show me which one feels better for me. So, Spirit team, please show me in my body and in my feelings and in my energy field right now. What does it feel like if I were to move to Los Angeles? And just notice what comes up and spend a few moments with it. And then say, okay, thank you, received. Okay, so Spirit team, can you please show me now in my body? What does it feel like when I move to New York? And then notice it. But take your time with it because your body will answer the question. And if you're like, oh, I'm not getting anything, okay, I would maybe do the meditation a little bit longer next time. And even just journal about, am I blocking the answer from coming through? Is there something I'm afraid of? Because if you aren't getting anything or you aren't getting any signs, maybe that you're afraid to make the decision. So I would clear up that fear first because that fear will probably block anything from coming through. And so you can just ask yourself, what am I afraid of? And regarding, the move to Los Angeles or New York, and dig a little bit deeper into it and just see what wants to rise to the surface. And you can communicate with that energy too of what your fear is. And then once you feel like, oh, okay, I feel like I've released this fear, then you really can go back into the meditation and ask the question again and see what shows up. Most of the time, though, most people know what it is that they want to do and what the choice is that feels best for them. But most of the time, they're just too afraid to make the choice. It's why, frankly, a lot of people will go to a psychic or a card reader or an astrologer. They want almost like permission to do the thing, permission that somebody else that doesn't know them is saying, yeah, move to New York. And then they can go, oh, good. That's what I was thinking too. I would much rather see people feel confident and feel resilient in their own body and their own life and their own emotions to be able just to make that decision because they feel like it is the best decision for them. The good news with all of this is, even if you make a decision that you get there and you're like, why the heck did I do this? Something isn't right here. I guarantee you there is something that you were meant to find or learn by moving there, that it was like going there and picking up the keys, finding the lesson that spirit wanted you to learn. So the universe isn't going to like let you fail. They're going to try to like reroute you like GPS. Like, oh, I took the wrong turn. GPS is going to now tell me how to get back on the path I need to get on. You'll always get redirected. But how you choose to move through those points in your life and those decisions really is up to you.
So beautiful. And I think women will really resonate with this and find this super, super useful, especially for those moments when we're in the middle of two things or even more things. But I agree with you. I think we all know deep down what we actually want to be doing. And also in my work as a coach, I do see that a lot. Sometimes people will come and they will say, well, I could do this thing, na 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 that I've done my whole life, and you can tell like they don't really feel it. Or I could also do this thing, it could work because I already have these skills, blah 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 blah. B. Or the other thing that I've always dreamt about and that I've always wanted to do, and then they light up all of a sudden, but it will never work because of this thing and this other thing. Da, da, da. And my role as a coach is like, okay, it's definitely C. This person definitely wants to C. Now let's own that desire first. Let's be clear that that's the desire. And second, how can we start clearing the fears that are lying to you and telling you that it's not going to work and all of the limitations and all of that? But I agree with you. Most of the times people already know deep, deep, deep down. If you really dig, they already know what they want. And it's just, in my case, I wouldn't say that the permission slip, but it's the clarity to own the desire and then just get rid of all the fears that are there and they're legitimate, but we need to get rid of them.
Yeah, they're trying to tell you some kind of story. The fear usually is. And if you dig deep enough, it's trying to protect you from something. And so if you communicate with that fear and you say like, "Oh no, I'm actually really excited about moving to New York. I appreciate fear that you showed up to try to keep me safe, to try to keep me in my same spot and keep me protected from what you think could happen, but I'm okay. I'm an adult and I feel really good about this. And I appreciate you showing up, but let's go ahead and like breathe that out and release that." And so you can absolutely have a conversation with your fear as well. And I think by acknowledging it and communicating with it and looking under the hood as to why it's showing up, I think you'll find it shows up less and less as
Mm.
time goes on. And then you just feel so much more empowered to go and make the choices because the fear isn't the main program that's running in your mind, your subconscious mind, or your energy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now I'm really curious to ask you because you predicted a major health crisis in 2019, just before COVID hit. You predicted the results of the last US elections, whether we like the results or not. So, what events do you foresee in the near future? I'm thinking this year, 2017. What do you see coming up our way?
I have chills from head to toe as you asked this question. I was actually sitting with this morning because I often look at the energy and just see what's coming up as a collective energy. I know this is going to sound dramatic, but it really feels, ooh, and I feel like I want to cry. So there must be something big that's just around the corner. And my leg is moving really, really, really fast underneath my desk here. Ooh, yeah, I can feel the tears coming in. So, what I was about to say is I think everything changes this year. And I know that sounds dramatic, but it feels like we get to the end of 2026 and it almost feels like whiplash, um, where what we knew before of ourself, of our life, just doesn't feel the same anymore. And I've asked Spirit, well, what are some different things that are coming? And they're like, they always show it to me like it's layers. It's not just like one thing. Although the feeling of these tears like coming up through my body, that would point to something that creates a lot of emotional devastation, is the word I'm hearing psychically this year. And I want to be very mindful about these words that are coming out of my mouth because I don't want to send people into fear, right? And so I think sometimes spirit will show me these different things that are going to be happening to hopefully help people get back into their own empowerment and back into their own strength and resiliency and get them into what is it that I want to do as an individual, because I think the individual experience is going to be very different than the collective. There's going to be, yes, major, major headlines this year. And according to this, it feels like there's going to be a lot of moments of sadness and grief, but I don't think we have to personally stay in that frequency. I think there is going to be a lot of headlines around, yes, the continuation of war. I know that's a lot that people are thinking about right now. I do think there will be an escalation of weapons that are used in that. I was shown recently that there would be a nuclear threat, and there may even be like alarms that go off, but I haven't seen the nuclear threat actually go off.
Mm.
Okay. So that would be good news right now in the energy as it sits. Now, could that change? Unfortunately, yes. But I know that there's a lot of astrology based on, what I've heard from astrologers because I just love astrology. And what is happening right now, a lot of it hasn't happened in decades. And you look at even Saturn, Neptune conjunct at 0 degrees of Aries, and that hasn't happened for thousands and thousands of years. You look at even human design, and they talk about how there's going to be like this new human that arises. And if I'm not mistaken, that's next year.
Mm.
So to say that 2026 is a year that changes everything, I know how that sounds. People might be like, "Oh, she's lost it." But the layers that I was referring to a bit ago, it feels like the money system that collapses and that the new way of paying for things changes between countries. The way that individuals will barter for goods and services in their own communities is going to become more popular. More and more people wanting to live off grid or live in kind of the middle of nowhere with their own kind of self-sufficient homes. There's things called earth ships that people are building more and more of. More of that happening. I have also seen that there will be a major strain on the healthcare system, like the hospital systems, and not just in the US, this ripples out, but that it will create an opportunity for us to rethink healthcare and how we are taking care of ourselves. AI is like a whole other piece of it. And I think, we need to at least mention it because it feels like AI is going to interesting. So I just heard in my ear going back to the warfare thing, but with AI. As soon as I mentioned AI, they said that is the bomb.
Wow.
So what it feels like energetically is maybe we're looking to the skies of like, is there going to be a bomb that gets dropped somewhere physically? And Spirit is saying through me now that AI is going to drop a different kind of bomb. And it matches actually things I've channeled before, which is around who am I? The feeling of, I don't know who I am anymore because my job has changed or my job no longer exists. Or AI is now doing my job and I can't believe I got overtaken by AI, right? So I think this year we're going to see a lot of identity crisis in the collective and people not knowing who they are anymore because they identified so much with what they did for work that it will feel like a bomb went off. And then they're left standing there going, well, now what? Now what do I do? So because it doesn't feel like we go from the detonation of AI in our world to like automatically having a solution of what this is going to look like and whether different countries are going to implement universal basic income. I think it is going to be a big topic of conversation. But it feels like AI starts moving so fast that we as humans, what Spirit is saying is like having a hard time keeping up with it.
Mm.
And with these different implementations in healthcare, in education, in the workforce, all connected to the future of AI that is here, it will cause a lot of things to feel like it's bombs going off.
Mm.
But there will be a period of time where it's the visual I'm seeing in my mind's eye right now is like imagining you are standing in a field and the bomb just dropped on your house and the building that you used to work in and it just like goes off. That if we're standing there looking at it, there's a little bit of a period of time where you kind of have to regroup.
Mm.
And you have to come together with people in your local community. You have to come together with people that are like your current elected officials and wherever you live and go, well, now what? Now what do we do? So I think that based on all of this, it feels like there's going to be a period of time where we're going to have to maybe not have access to a lot of the things or systems that we normally had access to as we work through what the future of this is. Because I do think we all signed up to be alive right now because we wanted to see all of this.
Mm.
And we wanted to be a part of the rebuilding that's going to occur and what that's going to look like and how we're going to thrive in it. So my hope really is that we let go, is what I'm hearing. It's almost like I've heard this before, but the visualization that goes with it is like, let's say you're in a river and you're tightly gripped on the side of the river, but the river's current is like pulling you, and you don't want to let go. And you keep holding on as tight as you possibly can. Your body is going to get thrashed around. Your energy is going to get thrashed around, but you're like, I need to control this. I need to hold on really tightly so I don't get swept away. But really, when you realize like I can let go and I can float down on my back, and the universe always takes care of me and I will figure this out. I wanted to be alive right now so that I could learn all of these things that are going to come along with this and the soul growth and evolution I get access to. So I'm going to lean back into faith, because really, we can only be in faith or love or fear at any given time. It's only one or the other. And so if you feel and you're hearing all this and you're going into fear, how can you go back into faith more? The trust that everything is working out in your best interest. How can you go into the frequency of love more within yourself and love for the planet, the animals, nature, your community? And so we're going to have to, I think, kind of go back and gut check ourselves very, very frequently to ask, is this me acting out of fear, or is this me believing that I am here for a reason and everything is unfolding as it should? So hopefully it's faith and not fear.
Yes, but that faith is going to be tested, I think.
Yes, it will be. It absolutely will be. And it may look like everything is burning down. It may look that way. But I think limiting how much we are going into that energy, unless you feel it's like your sole purpose of like, I came here to do this mission and I know, and I'm going to go in there and I'm going to fight the fire. For the rest of us, I would say try to limit how much you are going into those news stories or how much you're looking at it with your own eyes, because that is going to really easily probably pull you back into the energy of fear. And so if you are catching news stories of things that are going to be unfolding and you're like, what can I do about it? Ask yourself, like, get creative about it. Like, what can I do that will help me to feel like I'm doing something? And it's probably going to be something in your own local community, because I do think local communities are going to be really critically important this year and frankly in the next several years. And so what is it you can do for your fellow neighbor, the person down the street, So even start thinking about that now. Like, what could I do to make my community a little bit better? Because I think you're going to get the opportunity to do a lot of it.
And I think with, where the world is heading, everything is a lot more virtual and global and online. I think we will tend to look for actual human connection and to make sure that we're not talking to ChatGPT or whatever, but that we're talking to a real human being, a neighbor, a friend, a partner, someone who's actually there, that has flesh and who's actually showing human emotions. Because it's like now everything is, there's a code for everything. There's a reason for everything. There's an algorithm for everything. And I feel we want to go back to real human connection in person, on flesh.
I agree. I've been getting those downloads a lot lately about how do you bring more people together. And so you're right on target. I think that we can't be replaced. I think the energy our heart holds is unique to us, and that's not going to be replicatable. So always tune back into your heart. And whenever you have a question or you need guidance, your heart will always tell you the way. So just slow down long enough to hear it and to listen to it.
Absolutely. And now I have a bit of more of a personal question. Do you have any messages coming up for me? Anything my guides maybe want me to know?
Oh, let me tune in and see. Let's ask, what is it that you'd like to bring up, spirit team, that would like to be communicated? Interesting. Yeah. I would get really, really curious. It's fascinating. I just said that you were talking about it, and then I made a mention about connecting people together, because I think you are going to get a nudge or a calling about what you can do with people. This is work related, with people and bringing them together in person. Because the vision I was getting was you as like this leader and this host And all these people were like, woo, they were cheering and clapping as you were like entering into this group. So the message feels like you speaking up more, saying the things that are on your heart, bringing more people together in person for in-person experiences. And they just showed people like holding hands and closing their eyes and feeling that energy and that resonance between each other and feeling that flow. But yeah, it almost feels like a retreat of some kind that you lead. But I would also be very mindful when you receive invitations to do public speaking, I would do it. I would say yes, because I feel like you're in this journey, this road of getting your message out more. And that could also come up with different writings that you're doing, sharing different words that are coming through you and coming out into the world. And you may want to also start feels like channeling, but like channeling and putting it into some kind of like Substack or blog or something like that. So it feels like you're in a communication era and that you have a lot to say, but I feel like one of your gifts is that you help people heal their hearts. Because there's no mistakes when, we're sitting here having this conversation and we're talking about how the heart holds the wisdom and we can't replicate it in AI. And then all these visions are coming in with you in your life. I think you really help people to tap into their hearts again and to remember who they are again and not to be afraid to do more and more of that work and to be like known for it and to speak from the heart because you're a prolific channeler. So I would say keep your channelings coming in and feels like they're meant to be shared more widely.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's so beautiful. So, yes, I will be the lookout for more opportunities to communicate, whether that's in a retreat or any kind of speaking opportunity or anything that can spread the word. And I think I totally resonate with that. I help women to remember who they truly are before the fears came, before the human construct and the limitations came. It's like we take all the blunders off and who are you really? What do you really want? Let's do it. Let's go for it. Let's go for it. I know it's scary. It is very scary, but let's do it.
I
So
love
that's
that.
so beautiful.
Yeah. I think you will see more around group work, like working with groups and speaking in front of groups. So I think there's going to be this like switch into more and more group dynamic. So be on the lookout for those invitations.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dallisa, for this fantastic conversation. I think it's been full of juice with so many from tangible steps that women can do right now, and start really connecting with their intuition, really developing their own gifts. And also, from like very tangible things to like really, 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 really big perspectives on what is going to happen in the world and what's in our personal role in all of that, and how can we really tap into faith and love and not fear. It sounds like it's going to be quite easy to tap into fear. So we're going to get a lot more, we will have to get a lot stronger and really tap into faith and in love. So thank you so much for sharing all of this. It's been a true joy. I was telling Dallisa before we started speaking, I get so many messages from so many people that want to come on the podcast. And most of the time, as I would say, 99% of the times I say no. But with Dallisa, I was like, let's do this one. So I intuitively knew that this was going to be a good conversation. And thank you so much for being here, for sharing your wisdom with the world. It's been a true joy to learn from you, to connect with you and your huge heart. So where can listeners find you if they want to learn more from you, be in contact with you, maybe do a psychic reading? Where's the best place to find you?
Yeah. And thank you again for the opportunity. There was a lot that came out of our conversation. And yes, I'd love to connect with your audience. The best place is my website. It has everything on there. And that's at spiritandspark.com. So come say hello and don't be afraid to reach out and ask a question about, what we discussed today. And if there's something you're trying to sort through spiritually and how to activate your gifts, you can always do that. So thank you.
Fantastic. And then I always like to finish every episode with 3 rapid fire questions. So, literally, the first thing that comes to your heart will be the right one. Ready?
Ready as I'll ever be.
When was the last time you felt bliss?
Gosh, nothing comes to mind, which is sad because I feel like I probably need to sit there and think about that. The memory that I get taken back into was a trip that I took with my grandmother while she was still here. And she had this thing where she would put gobs and gobs of butter on everything that she would eat. And we would just sit there and laugh and laugh. And when you asked that question, I went back into that memory, which is interesting because while we've been having this conversation, my grandfather, who's also on the other side, who she was married to, I could feel him show up in spirit in my house. And he doesn't show up that often in spirit. So to have him come through while we were talking today is really, really beautiful. But yeah, that's the memory I go to.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm glad that he came to visit. Can you think of one idea that fundamentally changed your life?
These are such great questions.
I'm paid to ask great questions, so.
I go back and they keep my spirit team brings me back into these different memories. The memory that actually comes up was I had a conversation with someone that was an entrepreneur in residence at a university that I'd worked at. And he had said in an article about me that just really meant a lot to me that I would always figure out how to pivot. And what that means to me is that no matter what, and in this context, he was talking about me in business, but that no matter what, I can pivot, you can pivot, we can all pivot. We can all make a decision and go a different way. We can always look at everything around us and what's happening and unfolding, and we can decide that we're going to choose differently. And that happens in every moment of every day. But your brilliant question brought me back to that memory and the importance of pivoting. We don't have to stay on the same road for eternity. We don't have to make the same decision forever and ever. We can pivot anytime.
So beautiful. And if you could choose one rule that everybody in the world needs to obey, what would it be?
Honesty. I think the world would be very different if we all just spoke from the heart. It wouldn't be pretty. It wouldn't always be pretty. It would probably be very messy until we got used to it. But if we all just spoke from our heart, the world would change overnight. And we might be forced to do that, with everything changing. I don't think the same energy is going to work anymore. And so I think we'll all be asked to go into our hearts more and live our life through our hearts more intentionally each and every day. So I look forward to that.
Thank you so much for all of your wisdom, everything. It's pure gold, this episode. So really thank you so much for coming into the show and sharing all of this. It's been a true joy.
Mercedes, this was such a great conversation. And I really feel like my grandfather came through because your energy is so high, your frequency is so high. And so thank you for the work that you do and the beautiful questions that you ask. So thank you for this opportunity from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you so much. I will see my listeners in the next episode. And in the meantime, in Blisstopia we trust. If you loved this episode, spread the word, share the episode with a friend who would love to hear this, subscribe to the show, and leave a 5-star rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. This real quick action on your side helps the podcast grow, reach more women around the world, and it would literally make my day. I will see you next Friday for the next episode. And in the meantime, in Blisstopia we trust.